Well, welcome back. It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Lee Cowan of CBS interviewed the actor Harrison Ford on Sunday. I wouldn't normally start a monologue like this or spend any time on two such characters, but they spoke to something I hear all the time, so I'd like to extrapolate if I may. Lee Cowan asked, or said, "You're a good Midwesterner. You don't really talk politics or religion much, but that's changed a wee bit." "I think it's come to the point where we got to start talking politics," Ford said. "But we got to talk about it in a positive way. We got to regain the middle ground. We're in these ideological enclaves, but the truth is in the middle. Progress is made in the middle." And Cowan followed up saying, "And you think we can get back there somehow?" "We damn well better," Ford replied. Let's start with the conceit and then go to the merits. This is a cheap and old trick of the media's. Find someone who comes off as neutral or apolitical, get them to pontificate politically, and call them a wise sage as if speaking from Mount Olympus. But the problem is it is a conceit, at least when it comes to the likes of Harrison Ford. He's been political his whole life. The idea he doesn't talk politics much is a joke. Forever, when asked his religion, his answer had been Democrat. There you go. The hardest of the left has always treated politics as religion. He's been an environmental activist for decades. He's campaigned on behalf of child rapist Roman Polanski. And to his credit, he's spoken up on behalf of the Dalai Lama. Still, 17 years ago, in the midst of the Iraq War, he said, "We didn't need regime change in Iraq. We needed regime change here." That America needed liberation from an outside, or I suppose, an inside revolutionary force. Bush, worse than Saddam, doesn't talk politics much. Nice work, CBS. By the way, since hypocrisy or idiocy is the tribute Vice pays to virtue, there could have been manifold reasons not to seek regime change in Iraq, but if you cared about the environment, as Harrison Ford clearly does, you might have thought otherwise. Saddam Hussein unleashed one of the worst environmental disasters, man-made disasters, in the history of the world when he torched the oil fields in Kuwait in 1991. The plumes of smoke so great they could be seen with the naked eye from the space shuttle, never mind his marsh-draining campaign. But all that aside, since Harrison Ford spoke in ancient terminologies, like using the word regime, let's take seriously what too many say, that the truth is in the middle, progress is in the middle, and we damned well better get there. Okay. Speaking in ancient terminology and about the middle invokes the first political scientist, Aristotle, doesn't it? He, famously, of the discussion of the means, the real middle, the way to achieve virtue, the Aristotelian mean, it's known as. So let's get to it and have a discussion of what is moderate and what's extreme. As a quick refresher, Aristotle gave us the doctrine of the mean in his book, The Nicomachean Ethics, Book 2. As one professor put it, the doctrine of the mean comes up in the course of his discussion of arete, excellence, or virtue. As Aristotle put it, quote, "All excellence makes what has it good, and also enables it to perform its function well. For instance, the excellence of an eye makes the eye good and enables it to function well as an eye. Having good eyes means being able to see well. Likewise, the excellence of a horse makes it a good horse, and so good at galloping, carrying its rider, and facing the enemy. If this is true in all cases, then the excellence of a human being will be that disposition which makes him a good human being and which enables him to perform his functions well." Close quote. So Aristotle gets into the means, the balancing ethic or virtue between extremes. For example, courage or bravery is the mean between rashness and cowardice. A brave man is one who faces and fears what he should for the right reason, in the right manner, at the right time. A brave man performs his actions for the sake of what is noble. A brave man is thus one who is fearless in facing a noble death, as one teacher has put it. Or as Aristotle wrote, quote, "With regard to feelings of fear and confidence, courage is the mean. Of the people who exceed, he who exceeds in fearlessness has no name, while the man who exceeds in confidence is rash, and he who excels in fear and falls short in confidence is a coward. With regard to pleasures and pains, not all of them, and not much with regard to the pains, the means is temperance, the excess self-indulgence. Persons deficient with regard to the pleasures are not often found, hence such persons also have received no name, but let us call them insensible. So we get to our politics today. For those who strive for something like the center, or the middle, or the moderate, fine. We are all Aristotelians, or should be. Much of our founding is based on the Aristotelian teachings, as the Virginia Declaration of Rights, written by George Mason and taken up by Thomas Jefferson, states, quote, "No free government or the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people but by a firm adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, frugality, and virtue, and by frequent recurrence to fundamental principles," close quote. But for most, the learning is off. The compass here is wrong. Perhaps one may say with William Butler Yeats, the center does not hold. Turning and turning the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed and everywhere. The ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Could anything be truer than that just now? So let's talk about what's moderate and what party stands where, shall we? Start with the economy. Is it moderate or immoderate to allow for the acquiring and disposition of property and for commerce to thrive? Is it moderate or immoderate to make commerce difficult, make employment difficult, and hand over to the government the task of industry, invention, commerce, and employment? Well, all I can say or know is that deregulation and lower marginal tax rates unleashed prosperity, fuller employment, and reached into inner cities to boost the economic well-being of hard-to-reach or seemingly hard-to-reach areas. Simply put, is it moral for people to earn and keep what the sweat of their brow produces, or is it moral for people to be put in slavery so that others work while you eat? As Lincoln put it, should we truly ask for assistance in wringing bread from the sweat of other men's faces? Is it moderate or immoderate to maintain sovereign borders? Or was Saddam Hussein right in just taking, swallowing up another country? Is it moderate at the individual level to maintain your home or force it to maintain open doors so as to provide health and education and every other benefit of citizenship that the sweat of your brow pays taxes to support? Think of it now as not your home but your country. Is it moderate or immoderate to say, let us treat and take care of the widow and orphan here first, before taking on the task of using our taxes to pay for others who come here against the law, that others who come here in compliance with the law have respected? Is it moderate or immoderate to tolerate and allow to walk and stalk the earth men who would torture and slaughter innocents in the name of their version of God? Or is it moderate or immoderate to remove them from the earth so that innocents may live and determine their own destinies? Is it moderate or immoderate to support regimes that trust their own people? Or is it moderate or immoderate to support regimes that rule by blood or theological claims so as to prevent other human beings from determining their own destinies? In other words, to borrow from Thomas Jefferson, is it moderate or immoderate to recognize that the mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their backs, nor a favored few booted and spurred ready to ride them legitimately? Is it moderate or immoderate to allow a child to be born, or rather to snuff out its life for any reason, at any stage, by any physical means before or after its birth? Is it moderate or immoderate to judge human beings by dint of the color of their skin, for better or for worse? Is it moderate or immoderate to allow people to choose the schools their taxes fund, or rather to allow the schools to choose their charges and their pupils? Let me try it this way. If you believe in human flourishing, which is nothing more than saying if you believe in humanity or human rights or civil rights, does the center, the middle, respect regimes that are abhorred by the people who live in them? People who would give their eye teeth to leave those regimes that imprison people of faith or people with dissenting political views? I put it to you squarely. The party of Harrison Ford is on the road to nominating a man who has condemned this country but praised the regimes I just described, from the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics to Cuba to Venezuela, places people would give and had tried to give everything they had to flee. Harrison Ford and too many non-thinking people love the Dalai Lama and speak up for him. That's right. Ford has done so famously. Why do I say they're non-thinking? Because they don't ask why the Dalai Lama cannot live where he wants. Why are his people decimated in Tibet? Why is the Dalai Lama's homeland one of the most repressed places on earth? Why is the Dalai Lama's homeland unable to allow Tibetans to practice their religion? For it was taken over and now still governed by a regime Mr. Sanders and Mr. Bloomberg say kind things about and esteem, and opposed hammer and tong by the current president, the president Mr. Ford and his friends despise. It's a regime that profits off child slavery. But Mr. Ford would say nasty things about this president and not that regime, while standing up for the Dalai Lama. Indeed, the center does not hold, because the actor cannot hear or see what is plain to the eye, and that such blindness is the opposite of the understanding of what virtue is. Such people have no credibility to lecture us on what the center, or the middle, or the moderate is. Their eyes are, to borrow from Aristotle again, just not very good. Let's think on that when supposedly wise people lecture us about moderation. What of it do they know? It turns out, very little. I'm Seth Leibsohn, 602-508-0960. We'll be right back. I'd like to take a moment to tell you about my friends at Guns Etc. They are true American patriots. They strongly support our president, and they have over 10,200 square feet of firearms and firearm accessories. Please take my advice and stop by their store, which is a symbol of American freedom, or visit them at gunsetcetera.com and have access to over $350 million in firearms merchandise.